Our guest lecturer tonight is 24-year-old Scott Shaw, a photojournalist from the Odessa American, who recently was awarded the Pulitzer Prize for spot news photography for a photograph that he took of Jessica McClure shortly after she was rescued from an abandoned well in Midland. He's going to show us his award-winning photograph. In addition, he'll also show us a collection of his work from his college days at Southern Illinois University, some of his work from the Paragould Daily Press in Paragould, Arkansas, and some more of his work since joining the Odessa American in November of 1986. He has quite a collection of awards from the Arkansas Press Association, Associated Press Managing Editors, National Newspaper Association, and clip contests of the National Press Photographers Association. Will you please welcome Mr. Scott Shaw?
Thanks. I'll say a few words before we get on to the slides. That way I can kind of hide behind everyone and you can just look at the photographs, which I'm better at anyway. The night I shot the Jessica McClure rescue, my editors told me I had some award-winning photos, but I never expected them to win the Pulitzer Prize. Every photojournalist dreams of winning, but the odds are so high, I never really thought much about it. When I found out that I was one of the 3 finalists, I could hardly believe it. The day they announced the awards and I found out I was the winner, it just was even more unbelievable. I stared at the computer screen where it came across and just, it didn't even look like my name. Something strange about it. It was like an out-of-body experience. That's me. And then everybody started going crazy and lots of champagne was poured on me. Not much to drink, but people jumping up and down. It was crazy. And then immediately after that, all the phones started ringing. Just interviews from papers throughout Texas, AP, UPI, Associated Press, United Press International, for those who don't know what that is, New York Times, just one after another, friends from college, and they had about 10 people taking phone calls and messages and kind of prioritizing who I would call next for an interview, and they're arranging it for me because it was just so crazy, and 3 TV stations were there wanting to interview me at the same time, and then they're wanting me to go to their actual location and do a live interview on their set and radio station. It was nuts. I don't know what else to say about that. It's just unbelievable. But at the time of the rescue, I wasn't really thinking about winning any awards. I was just worried about what I would do when she was actually rescued. And that was the problem because we never knew when that would be. I was there about 16 hours, and then I went home for a few hours, and then I went back after working 10 more hours in Odessa. I went back for 22 hours until they finally got her out. And then after that, came back to the paper for another 8 hours to print and develop and get all the photographs sent off to picture agencies who then sold them to magazines, as well as fulfilling the needs of our newspaper with a photo page plus front page and another page. Get back and they tell me I have another 10 photos they need, so it was really busy that night. But that's about all I need to say before I go to the slides, so we can dim the lights. Here's the photograph that was awarded the Pulitzer Prize for spot news photography. When she actually came out of the well, I got about 11 pictures off, and that was it. It happened so fast once I brought her out. 58 hours of waiting, and then about a minute of actual photography. And this is the 6th photograph I took. In this shot, it all kind of came together with all the workers looking at her. The frame before and the frame after that, there's always something different. Somebody was moving or they weren't looking at her. In this one frame, I got everything right. But as I was shooting it, I never knew something like this was happening in so split second. Here's a shot when I first arrived on the scene. She'd been in the well for about 6 hours. I had to relieve our chief photographer, Mark Rogers, who'd been there. I was advised she'd be out in just a couple of hours was all. So I kind of set up and waited and took what photographs I could of the rescue, which was mostly underground. And there was a 5-foot fence between the media and the actual rescue site, because where she fell was right next to a fence in a backyard, so we had to all get on ladders to see what was happening. And rescuers continued to dig in a tunnel parallel to the well, so they could then go across and get her underground without it caving in on them, because the well was only like 6 inches in diameter where Jessica fell in. Fairly soon, night approached, and it looked like it would be morning before they actually brought her out of the well. So we kind of all camped out, and they set up some rescue lights. That's my view from the top of my 10-foot ladder, I think. It's pretty weary. It started getting cold out as the temperature dropped. So by 8 a.m., they'd been there 16 hours, but they still hadn't gotten Jessica up. I was told I had to go back to the paper with my film when another photographer arrived. So I went home. That's when I went home and slept for 4 hours, and then came back to work for another 10 hours. At 11 p.m. the next night, I was back at the rescue site, and they were setting up a tube that was feeding oxygen and heat to Jessica at night, so as the temperatures dropped, so she could breathe down there in the hole. When I first arrived back then, she'd been in the hole 37.5 hours. And when I left, there were about 3 photographers and 3 TV crews on 3 ladders. We were all kind of sharing the ladder. And when I got back, there were about 20 photographers and 12 television crews, and there were at least 25 ladders. Some of them were up to like 25 feet at least. They were way up there. So after another night of digging, it came morning again. And here's some of the photographers on the ladders. Just a few of them. I couldn't get all of them in the picture because we were pretty much surrounding the hole. Everywhere you could actually see part of the well where they bring her up, there was a photographer. And that's a few of them on the ladders there. And here's a shot of some of the photographers sleeping. It's about 6 in the morning, just as the sun was coming up. I was waiting over near the site to get a picture, and a reporter grabbed me and said, "Hey, there's a funny picture over here, come get it." So I found these photographers sleeping, and I ended up waking them up. I tried to be quiet, but they weren't too happy. But they're used to it, so. Here's a shot where I got up in a cherry picker from a truck. They let me up there for about a half hour, so I kind of got an overall of the scene. You can see a lot of the media there on the left, and then the well on the right where they were trying to free her. In that area just below, we weren't allowed to be in. That was more for the rescue workers. They kind of kept us away from there so we wouldn't get in their way or they wouldn't get in ours. And here's a shot I got when I was up there of a worker coming out of the hole. He's all dusty and dirty from trying to chip away the caliche rock coming up. It's about noon at that time. Here's some rescue workers and policemen looking down the hole where Jessica fell in. The man on the left has some binoculars to try and check, see how she is, and they also had a microphone down there to hear how she was doing. Occasionally they could hear her cry or sing. Here's her mother about 5 hours before they rescued her, I think. She's clutching a teddy bear. There were reports that Jessica was singing Winnie the Pooh songs down there to try and stay cheerful. So they're kind of comforting the mother. Here's one of the rescue workers. He was a welder. This is the well cap they put on after they rescued Jessica. he wrote that message in chalk beforehand and showed it to everybody, and then later they welded it on top so it would be permanent, so no one else would be falling down that well. Here's another shot of the parents waiting, watching. That's about, I think, an hour and a half before she was rescued. They're watching all the workers. They're growing really weary. It's probably 56 hours at this point. Then they, right after that, they whisked them away and put them in the ambulance, and that's when we knew that it was coming up pretty quick, because they got them ready to go to the hospital when they brought her out. So everybody kind of started getting ready. Here's the Midland Chief of Police on the lower left. He was there throughout the 58 hours, as were most of the workers. And he's getting really wary. This was after they thought they were going to bring her up. They were kind of all disappointed because they found out the hole wasn't large enough to bring her up. So they're all taking a break there. And here they actually brought her up. This is one of the shots. The paramedic pulled her up from the hole, all bandaged up and secured. They checked her out for a few minutes, and then they whisked her to the ambulance. And here's a shot as they were bringing her to the ambulance. This shot I almost didn't get. It happened so fast. I was taking pictures of her when she first came up, and I was going to change to a different lens for when they ran by, so I wouldn't be as close. So I'd have a good chance of shooting it. And I looked down, and there they were running. So I held the camera up, and I could just kind of see a blur and of that shape, and I wasn't sure if I could get it focused, because I just got the one shot as they ran her by. He was probably going 5 miles an hour or something, sprinting to the ambulance, and got her wide-eyed, and it turned out well. And that's when the editors started going crazy when they saw this. They ran this photograph on page 1. The other shot that won, they ran on page 3 and on the photo page. But I think they made the right decision, because this, I think, has more impact at first glance to readers, since her eyes are wide open like that. Lets them know she's all right. And then the other shot kind of went better with the other photos of the rescue, kind of more of a story, an overall shot of the workers and the whole happening. At first we thought this photo won the Pulitzer because we entered this by itself as a single, and then we could also enter a number of pictures from the rescue, which we entered 20 shots from the overall rescue, some of the ones I just showed. And when I found out I was one of the 3 finalists, we just thought this was the shot since we entered it as a single. But about a half hour after I'd been given all these interviews, telling all these newspapers and news agencies how this photo won, and described how I got this shot, how I got the one shot, and it was, it happened so fast and all that. A close-up. Half hour later, they transmitted the photograph over Associated Press wire of the other shot, and everybody's going, they got the wrong one, they got the wrong one. For some reason, I don't know why we think they could make such a mistake like that, but after that I kind of changed my story about the winning photo, but it still managed to show up in a lot of newspapers saying this photo won, and describe this photo, and then you'd see the other photo and they didn't really match. It's too late at that point. I didn't know who I'd talk to. There were so many people. So we just kind of had to go with it. And a few papers called back saying, this doesn't sound right, and if you didn't. So those are the main shots of the rescue. I've got some other photographs, as they mentioned, through my last 4 or 5 years of taking pictures I'd like to show. Here's one of a house fire in Odessa. It was on election night. Everybody just got back with shots of the winning people in the school election, citywide election. They called a fire, and I was done with my photos, so I ran over. It was only about 4 blocks from the newspaper, so I got there real fast. And, in fact, I beat the firemen. I stood there for about 3 minutes waiting for them, hoping they'd get there before the flames went out, and they finally showed up. In this photo, you can kind of see some white specks. That's because a hose sprung a leak, and that's the water between the shed and me spraying by, and in the next few frames after that, all you see is water because I just got soaked because the hose just went crazy. They had to shut it off. So that was a wet one. Here's a shot of a truck wreck I came upon. This was in Illinois. I'd just been in Chicago and I was going back to college. And I came along the highway and saw this truck, and nobody was there yet. It just happened probably a minute before I got there, so I just turned around and got over them, and then everybody showed up. And they're pulling this man out from a carnival truck. He was caught under there briefly. It looks like, might look like it's blood on his shirt, but it was grease from the truck. But they got him out safely to the hospital, luckily. Here's a shot I took at college. This was right by the dormitory I was living in at the time. I was sitting in the hallway talking to some friends, and all of a sudden we noticed everybody running down the street towards the corner. We wondered what's happening. So I grabbed my camera and we went out there, and this woman had just had an argument with her husband, and he'd thrown her and the child out of the car. So that's loading his mother into the ambulance while the police officer held the child, who wasn't really sure what was going on. This was a fun picture for me. I was in Arkansas. I was driving around town looking for a shot of somebody doing something on a hot summer day. And I hadn't had much luck. The town I was in was only about 15,000 people, so it was kind of slow that day. I saw an older lady with a push mower cutting her grass. And I took that photograph and I thought, well, I can probably do something better. And I'd been driving about 3 hours around this little town. So I turned the corner and went about 2 blocks and saw this man throwing up his daughter in the air. Got out and got some shots off before he quit because his arms started getting pretty tired. She was up there pretty high. You know, this was one of my big award winners, I think. It seemed to do the best until Jessica. Here's a shot, also in Arkansas, on another slow day, downtown Arkansas. It was an old barber shop. They're playing checkers, which they did every day. And the barber shop was called Ruby's Barber Shop. The barber named it after his wife. He was really fond of her, I guess. But it was a really neat place. Luckily, I got this shot because a few months later they renovated and made it a modern barber shop. They sold it to a chain, sort of, and repainted the walls, did away with all the old things like that old scale. So that was a loss. Here's a shot at the county fair in Arkansas. She's, I think it's backwards, but you can still tell what's happening there. They were getting ready for the festivities of the baby pageant, and the girl was kind of tired. They started late, so it was about 8 o'clock at night, and they were just getting started. And there was, unfortunately, her number's number 1. It doesn't show how many were there. There was 114 babies in the pageant that night, so it was a very long night. Here's another shot in Arkansas. I did a lot of driving around in that town. Went into a housing project there, saw these boys fixing their bike, and shot a roll of film on them, and decided I wasn't satisfied, so I took a different angle and moved around and got the sunlight with a darker background on him. And as he was tightening that bolt, he just went, put his all into it, I guess, there. Really grimaced, and I was afraid I missed the photo on this one because there was this little boy right next to me the whole time, and he kept saying, "Take my picture, my bike's better," you know. And right when that happened, he stuck his hand in front of the lens, and I thought, oh, I missed it. So I never did take that boy's picture. But I got 2 shots off before you could see a blurry hand in the photo, luckily. Another slow day at the county fair. This was Senior Citizens Day. This old couple were sitting there from the heat. She was just fanning them. It's funny because I was only about 5 feet away from them when I took this picture, but they didn't even notice me at all. I went up to them after I shot it and asked their names, and they said, "Oh, do you want to get our picture or something?" I said, "I already got your picture." They were just exhausted. Here's a photograph at a rock concert of the Police. I was staying there. they let us shoot 2 songs, and that was all. And the first song was all this fog. They filled the stage with fog, so the first song you couldn't even see him at all, so you couldn't shoot anything. So we had our work cut out for us with one song, and we got this shot. He was just in front of me. His feet were like about 5 inches from my face, and I'm looking up at him. The wide angle lens, and got it all in there, the lighting. So that was fun. Here's a close-up. Some people, it's a little gruesome for some people, but others can handle it. I did a photo page on eye surgery in Odessa. Went into a hospital and photographed a couple operations. This is cataract eye surgery. The bubble is just the air bubble in there. He's getting the cataract out. A lot of people think it's a contact lens or something. So that was a fairly close-up photo there. Here's some fashion I did. Don't know what to say about this. I did a photo page on winter fashion, and I wanted to do something with a lot of good textures in it. Called up this woman. We just ran her picture the week before in our wedding section. She just gotten married, so I called her up, and it turned out she'd already moved 5 hours away after she got married. But she was nice to come, and I didn't know it, but she was a pretty big model. I don't think she's like a Sports Illustrated type, but she modeled a lot for ads. Like there's this type of weightlifting equipment. A rowing machine. She was in, like, I saw her picture in People magazine, Newsweek, and a few others after I took this. I didn't know who she was at the time. So she was nice enough to come by, 5-hour drive, and let me take her picture, not knowing who I was or anything. She was good. Here's a football shot. Kind of interesting. He's in Arkansas against Grambling. He managed to hold on to the ball there. He just got a hold of it, but all the other teams falling on his side. Here's a rugby photo. That was my favorite sport to shoot. There's always plenty of good action, and they don't have their heads covered with helmets, so you can see their faces. See what kind of expressions they got. They're real rough. They just tackled the guy, and he's fumbling the ball, and they're all just going crazy there, trying to catch up with him. Here's a baseball shot. He was out at second, but he didn't believe it. So he protested for a while and eventually went along the side there. This is from a story I did on a tent revival. It was a week-long event in Illinois while I was at college. It was a dark place. It was real hard to photograph in, but it was worth it. It was only lit by some light bulbs. And here's one of the men worshiping. They got pretty emotional there. Got the boy on the left there. It's getting past his bedtime. He started yawning again. I like those yawning photos. It's my favorite. And that's his father on the right there. Family affair. Here's a close-up of the preacher delivering the gospel. The Bible, I was afraid. He was moving his hand so furiously, I was afraid I wouldn't get one where he held it still, but on a couple he just, I don't know if he's doing it for me or what, but he held it still for a few seconds, and I got a shot off there. Here's the man we saw earlier with his arms out, dancing as they were singing to a song. He really got into the fair. So they're cheering and kind of danced. There's 3 shots. Another preacher with his Bible, a boy who was sick, he was being saved there. His mother held him, and then kind of an outside view of the tent and the worshipers. And now we've got some color shots here. This was in Odessa. We got a tip that there was a strange man with a toilet and some legs sticking out of it. So I drove up there, and the man wasn't home, unfortunately. So I took some shots of the legs by themselves, and it was funny, but it just didn't do enough for me. So right across the street, there was another odd thing. There was an ostrich. This woman had like a mini zoo at her house, and she came out and she was feeding her ostrich, so I started getting photographs of that. And then this guy came home, and the legs were more down. The wind had blown them down. So I went and started photographing him, and then he straightened the legs, and that's when he kind of bent over there and scratched his head. He was checking to make sure they were straight. I guess he wasn't quite sure there. I got a couple shots off of him scratching his head. Here's a big fire in Odessa. 10 mobile homes. There's a mobile home park and a gas line underneath. Caught fire somehow. It took them almost a whole day to get the fire out. I tried to concentrate on the firemen. It was like 105 out that day, and they were just exhausted. So I got a lot of Gatorade photos that day. I like that angle of the stories. Here I had to illustrate this is on close, firing at close range. Not sure, they had a catchy name for it in the paper, but I can't remember what it was. Deadly force. With firing a gun at someone within like 5 or 6 feet. And I got this guy out at the firing range practicing, and I got the one shot off where the bullet, you can see the bullet leaving and actually going through the target. It's kind of fuzzy there towards the target, but the flame would come out of his gun. It was just as the sun was setting. So I took about 20, and that was the only one where I could actually get the bullet all the way coming out like that. Here's some a couple in a park on Martin Luther King Day. They were at a candlelight vigil. So they were trying to keep the wind from blowing out their candles. It's really windy in Odessa if you've never been there. Here's some boys walking home from school in Odessa. They were cold. They were trying to keep their ears warm, I guess. So I don't know how they saw it. It's kind of hard to see through their jackets, but I managed to catch them walking down the street. Get them to peep their heads out of there long enough to give me their names. And that was a fun one. This was to illustrate a story on paranormal activities. This man was part of a club that investigated such strange things as UFOs and bending spoons. In this case, it's kind of casting a skeptical eye on a bending of a spoon. And we had somebody in the background kind of move the light around and give it an eerie look to it. This is a Easter sunrise service down at college. People started getting there at like 4 in the morning in the dark, and it starts about 6:30 in the morning, I think. And the sun was just coming up. It was finally getting bright enough to see what was happening. Everybody's huddled under their blankets there. Another shot driving around Odessa, and we had a brother and sister. He was wanting to get close to his sister there and give her a little kiss, but she didn't really like it, so caught him in their little toy Jeep. Here's a boy, I did a photo page on a soccer team. I followed them throughout the season in college, and this was their favorite part of soccer practice, was drinking. They loved to play with the bottles and squirt them into each other and just see how much they could drink before they had to quit. Here's a sunset at a wildlife refuge in southern Illinois, where the geese come to migrate on their way down to Florida. They stop here. It's one of the shots. Here's a close-up of this was for a food illustration on fruits, on different fruits. Just kind of set up different shapes and forms there. Here's a shot putter I think that's called the hammer throw. I'm not sure. He also threw the shot put, but he really put a lot of effort into his throws there. I don't know what that was, but he did that every time he threw it. So it gave me plenty of chances to get it on film. But I don't know if he knew he did that or not. He did after he saw it in the paper, I'm sure. Here's kind of a provocative, maybe, photograph to illustrate a page I did on perfumes, different perfumes. Had this girl in the studio spray perfume on her about 3,000 times until we had to get out of there because it's too strong. Here's a shot in Odessa at night, top of the building. The sun was going down. Not a lot of big buildings in Odessa, so that's a hospital behind her. That was fun. That was a very cold night. For a page I did on silver and gold type clothing, shoes. Here's a shot. We had to do a cover for our, I think it's fall fashion or spring, I can't remember now. So I wanted to get a girl with her dog, kind of standing there by the shadow of the signs. That's the actual one of the walls of the newspaper. I noticed it when I was coming to work one morning, this shadow. So we didn't have to go too far. But it wasn't her dog, so we needed to find a dog. And I didn't know what a Rottweiler was at the time. They said she could get a Rottweiler, so I said sure. It turned out to be a big dog that was kind of mean. The owner, he told me after that he gave some sort of signal to the dog so that to keep him on me, because whenever I'd come near, the thing would lunge at me, and like he was going to attack me. So I guess the owner helped me a little bit. But I think that's all the photographs. Yes, sir.
At the race yesterday, how much tension was there between the press and the authorities that
I don't think there was a lot. At first there was, because they wouldn't let us very near the well to get good clear photos, but they had some representatives from the department that were continually updating the television people and the reporters as to what was happening, so that helped. So I'd say as time went on, tensions were more on when are they going to get her out than the working relationship between the press and the rescuers. Yes, sir.
Did you do anything else in Arkansas besides drive around?
No, not much. Like I said, the town was only about 15,000 people, so I didn't have too many assignments each day. The reporters had their own cameras, so if it was an assignment which they thought would be important, that they might put on front page, or they needed a good photograph where it was more than just like a mug shot or something, I'd go on those. But otherwise, there's a lot of driving around. Yes, sir.
I understand you're 24 years old. How old was the youngest one of the
I'm not sure. Probably 21, 22. I'd like to know. I haven't seen anything on that, but I know I'm probably one of the youngest. Yes.
Well, it's nighttime, we took it together.
Yeah.
I wonder what kind of film you
Tri-X, black and white. It was 400 speed. I used a flash, so, but you can't really tell because I kind of had a slower shutter speed to balance the rescue lights, and used the flash just to kind of stop the action and fill in the shadows, so it looked pretty natural. Yes, sir.
With all the other photographers and the press there, and they're shooting pictures at the same time, what was it that distinguished your picture from all the rest that were taken at that same instant when she came out?
I think part of it was the angle I had. We were just surrounding the site, but a lot of them, I didn't see any like that with all the workers looking at her. I just mostly saw workers, backs of heads, and you could see Jessica. And a lot of them, sometimes they didn't even get her face. They got the back of her. It just depends. Some shot closer up. Like if I would have used a closer lens, I could have got her real sharp, but you wouldn't even seen all those workers around her, and it wouldn't. That's what partly made the photograph. So.
What has been in the Pulitzer done for your career and for the Odessa American?
I'd say it's helped my career.
Well,
Elaborate. Okay. I'm trying to think. It's opened a lot of doors. I spoke to a lot of professionals in the field that might not have given me as much time before because they didn't. I'm just another person wanting a job maybe, or wanting some advice, and now I think I get a little more respect, and it's definitely going to help, you know, wherever I decide to go from here. I think get the respect, but I still have to keep working to take good photographs. I can't just say, well, I won once, you know, for the rest of my life, and just, you know, stop there. I think for the paper, it adds prestige to the newspaper now. They've got it up on their masthead, you know, Pulitzer Prize 1988. They can put in their ads. I've seen them put, you know, Odessa American Pulitzer Prize winning newspaper looking for, you know, reporters or whatever. So that it sounds a lot more important, I think, after you've won, that you actually won that honor. So they're promoting it in a lot of ways. So I'm sure that'll help the talent they get in.
This is the American, Odessa's only paper.
Yes. Yeah. Odessa's about 100,000 people. And they also circulate in Midland, which is 20 minutes away, but not that heavily. More Odessa oriented. So, yes, sir.
What type of black and white slide do you
Slide film?
use?
That's actually color slide film. I just shot the black and whites onto the color film. It's Fuji Chrome 100s. No, we use Fuji Chrome. That's what we get, so that's what I use. Kodachrome's always good though, but you can't develop that in a half hour like you can the Fuji Chrome, which we have facilities for. So that's what we use, but it's good. That's all the color you saw was on Fuji Chrome that I shot. Any other? Yes, sir. Not really. I talked to the last three winners recently. The other one that won this year, he was at the Miami Herald. He just went to the Washington Post, and I talked to the two that won last year, and they all said they got a huge raise after they won. But I didn't. They said they didn't want to be unfair to the other photographers, is what they said. But they also said, well, you're going to be leaving in a month or two anyway, so why bother? That was their attitude, I think. And I won $3,000 from Pulitzer, and they matched that. They did give me $3,000 from the newspaper as well. So that's better than a raise, because I might not have gotten that much overall from a raise.
Do you have plans to move on?
Yeah, I'll probably move to a larger newspaper in the next month or two. I haven't decided where yet. I don't know where I want to go. I'm trying to figure out what's going to be best for me to keep growing and learning photography. So I don't want to just go to some huge paper that's going to offer me a lot of money, and I'll just kind of, you know, shoot and kind of get lost in it all, you know, not learn much. I want to go somewhere where I can work with others and teach me something. Yes?
Would you be interested in San Antonio?
Possibly. I haven't talked to them. They haven't called me either. So I have gotten some calls from different newspapers, like Dallas papers, Houston, and different ones across the country, and just trying to decide what I want to do. I'm not like aching to get out of Odessa next week or anything, just to get out. So it's not too bad there, especially now. Yes.
Where were you born, and did I hear you say earlier you were involved in journalism in high school and you did this in college?
Yeah, I was born in Danville, Illinois, which is Danville, Illinois. It's about 50,000 people. A lot of celebrities from there, but it's true. Dick Van Dyke's from there, Jerry Van Dyke and Gene Hackman, and a few others. I can't remember, a lot of actors. But I got started in the high school newspaper and when I was a junior in high school, and then the next year I got a job also on the town paper and shooting high school sports, kind of part-time. And then I worked there a few more years until I went to college. So I've worked pretty long time, because I worked throughout college and before, and I've been out of college almost 3 years now. I guess about 3, yeah. Yes.
Now that you've won the Pulitzer, are there any other goals that you have? Have you found it hard to find the goal that you toward next? What are your thoughts?
I don't really think it's going to be hard. I think I just need to keep shooting like this. Like I said, when I was shooting this, I wasn't going for a Pulitzer Prize. I never thought about it. So I'll just keep shooting, and if it turns out good, you know, I'll work to make it turn out good, and go from there. So, all right, thanks.